Today we're going to take a look at the top 30 highest ranked WCW matches of all time. To get our match scores, I'll be using cagematch.net. Some of you may think this doesn't really give us a good idea of what the best matches really were, because anyone could make an account and score their favourite wrestlers high, even if they had bad matches. But Cage Match is also the only true score aggregator we have on the internet. It's the only place where multiple fans voted on matches as opposed to checking out Meltzer ratings or ratings from one or two critics. I also think for every one person who gives a biased score, there'll be 4 or 5 who didn't, and I think Cage Match scoring is just a much better way to see what fans enjoyed as opposed to the opinion of just one guy. So let's take a look and see what matches stood above the rest, and maybe you'll find a gem or two in today's video. We're starting off with a match you've maybe never seen before, or you might have totally forgotten about. Rey Mysterio took the Cruiserweight belt away from Kidman in a match that's absolutely filled with high spots. These two would also face off at Spring Stampede a month later, but fans prefer this Nitro encounter, and I fully agree. This is easily one of WCW Nitro's best ever Cruiserweight matches, and the only thing that annoys me is the fact that there's a commercial break in the middle of it. The French Disaster gave this one 8 points, saying, "I don't know how, but they managed to have a good match in less than 10 minutes. They both showcased their talent and athleticism with great mutual respect." There was some brutality in Disney MGM Studios when Cactus Jack faced Big Van Vader on WCW Worldwide. This is the one with the powerbomb on the outside. The two men had very limited time due to the nature of these MGM tapings in the day, but in 6 or 7 minutes they put on a very hard-hitting match that would just leave viewers wanting more. They had a match before this one that was so brutal WCW had to edit out all the violence. Word spread about how crazy the match was, and WCW wanted to capitalise on all the buzz. So they had this match where Foley ended up with a legit concussion. Scoring at 7 out of 10, Northern Heights said it was a very good sprint and very action-packed. A bit too short to be anything beyond that though. I wanted more, but 7 minutes is fine. One of the bloodiest War Games matches of all time, and the one that features that scary spot where Sid drops Brian Pillman on his neck. It's not my favourite War Games match, but it is still fun to watch. Much of the criticism for this one gets directed at Sid, and yeah, he had a really bad night to say the least. The finish was also awful, with El Gigante coming to the ring to surrender on behalf of Flying Brian. Some may have been disappointed when Arn Anderson got replaced with Larry Zbyszko on the Horseman's side, but Larry was still great in this match. Though to be honest, this isn't a match that I personally would rank so high. Teenage Dirt wrote, "What a fun match it was, but it has the faults that go with the qualities. Pillman did a great job despite being limited by the cage height. The ending is a disgrace." Over 30 minutes was spared for this one on WCW Saturday Night, which was extremely rare at the time. While not as great nor historic as their critically acclaimed match trilogy in 1989, it was still very interesting seeing both guys wrestle again with 5 years more experience. The two also wrestled at Spring Stampede 1994 a few weeks prior, and I'd recommend you check that match out before this one. But then again, you could just watch the 1989 matches for the extra drama and extremely good ring work. As far as WCW TV matches go from this era though, this one is hard to beat. The Doc summed it up well when he said these two put on a bunch of great matches in the 80s. This is another one that's not the best, but still good. This one took place when WCW pay-per-view opening matches were stealing the show every single month. Malenko and Dragon wasn't your typical WCW Cruiserweight match though. There's quite a lot of submission work in this one too. So what you end up with here is a good showcase match for the up-and-comers in World Championship Wrestling. The guys who could easily put the big money boys to shame in terms of bell-to-bell action. It's not a perfect match. There's other Cruiserweight matches I'd choose over this one, but it gets good reviews for a reason. The ratings machine said Dean Malenko and Ultimo Dragon had such a great match that even the usually poor commentary from WCW couldn't hurt it. They got one of WCW's better pay-per-views off to a heck of a start. The match that gave us the White Castle of Fear vignette. The vignette was ridiculous and goofy, but the strap match at Super Brawl was anything but. Usually strap matches aren't my thing, but this one is definitely the exception in my book. Both guys beat the hell out of each other with that strap, and WCW also flipped the script a little by having Vader win. You kinda expected Sting to walk away with a victory after a hard fought match, but the big man won this time around. We have another Sting vs Vader match in this video, but don't sleep on the Super Brawl match just because it's ranked lower. The Beholder said, "This really lived up to the hype as the match not only delivers on psychology and storytelling, but on brutality too. A fitting final chapter of this great rivalry that ends in blood and Vader still the champ, but Sting still looking like the ultra babyface the company needed." Chris Benoit and Dean Malenko brought a technical match to WCW Hog Wild 96, but they wrestled in front of a crowd who didn't care about technical wrestling. It's probably the best example of a match that gets brought down due to the crowd, and I firmly believe this one would get talked about more if it was held in a more traditional wrestling venue. If you like watching either of these men wrestle, then you're still going to enjoy it. However, you could say they went too long, with the match reaching the 20-minute time limit and time extensions getting added. Again, if it happened anywhere else, the audience could have been going insane during the closing moments, but I don't think this one should get ranked so highly, and I also think it was a bad move putting on this kind of technical grapple fest in front of fans who couldn't have cared less. Tyke Chandler wrote, "If there's a time limit on the match, then why in the name of is there overtime? Why have a time limit to begin with? This drives me insane." Ric Flair was very high on the total package, and it was thanks to Flair that Luger got work in Atlanta to begin with, coming straight into Jim Crockett Promotions and associating himself with the Horsemen. When it was time for Flair and Luger to square off, you could absolutely tell that the Nature Boy was doing all he could to make Lex look good, and it's a testament to Flair's abilities back in the late 80s that he managed to get a very solid match out of Lex that went just over 30 minutes. Luger looked great, but Flair made him look like a superstar. Trev Puro fan said, "Many people call this the greatest carry job ever, and while I do agree that Flair carried Luger a bit, Luger also looked fantastic here, showing some real counter wrestling and using his explosive moves to get rid of Ric Flair. In the end, classic Ric Flair outsmarted him though." WCW fans love seeing the return of Ricky Steamboat, and I think this match gets rated so highly due to the insane crowd reaction Ricky gets when he's revealed as Dustin Rhodes' surprise partner. Watch the match though and you'll witness a masterclass in selling from Double A and Larry Sabisco. The Enforcers gave the audience what they wanted to see, and the babyfaces getting the victory made it all the more exciting for fans who attended Clash of the Champions. Sweet Fatter 5 wrote, "Awesome moment with Ricky Steamboat revealed as Dustin's last minute partner, and what a good performance he delivers. Good heel work from the Enforcers as expected, making Ricky and Dustin's surprising win all the more satisfying." Another Dean Malenko match and another pay-per-view opening match from 1996 featuring cruiserweights. When it comes to Malenko vs Mysterio, you have a tremendous amount of matches to choose from. People bring up Eddie vs Mysterio quite a lot, and for good reason too. But Ray's matches with Dean, I feel, are matches that we take for granted. Maybe it's because they wrestled so many times, maybe it's because Dean isn't as big of a name as Eddie Guerrero, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you don't check out Malenko vs Mysterio matches in WCW. This one is awesome by the way, but don't forget about their 1996 Great American Bash match also. Burning Lariats wrote, "This match is a shining example of why Rey Mysterio Jr. obviously went on to become a living legend. It's also further proof of how Dean Malenko is one of the most proficient wrestlers ever. Everything he did seemed to be executed exactly how it's meant to be. That includes a great finish to a great match." This one gets a lot of praise due to the simple yet effective psychology used throughout the 30-minute match. There's quite a lot of falls in this Iron Man contest, with the final score being 4-3 in favour of Ricky Steamboat. The first third of the match is a bit slower than the rest of the bout, but I agree it's a great Iron Man match that builds and builds towards the final exciting 5 minutes or so. If you fancy something a bit more traditional though, check out their match at Super Brawl 2. I enjoy both matches, and right now I can't decide which one I like better. On the Iron Man match, Pertinax said, "This was pretty good. A lot of nice selling and psychology at times. The stupid rules of the day, like a move from the top being a DQ, and some weak falls early on could make it a tough watch, but the last 10 minutes were excellent." I'm pleasantly surprised to see this one ranked so highly, and while I don't think it should get ranked higher than, say, the Sting vs Vader Super Brawl match, it's still one of WCW's best ever cruiserweight bouts. A typical WCW cruiserweight match is pretty much non-stop, but adding in one more guy takes things to a whole new level. Sometimes I feel the trios matches or 8-man tag cruiserweight matches can get a little too chaotic, but having just 3 guys in there is a really nice balance where you get a bit more meaning behind the moves. To be fair though, this one does have its fair share of high spots, and if that's not your thing, then you might not have the best time watching it. But I thought generally the match helped Starrcade 98 immensely when you consider everything else that went down during that show. K. Charles wrote in his match review, "Strong candidate for Cruiserweight Match of the Year, non-stop action with lots of crazy spots. Ending was a bit disappointing with your typical WCW tainted finish, but still an awesome match." There's a lot to be said about Sting's WCW run after his run with the Red and Black NWO ended. Classic matches were few and far between, and in terms of storyline, well, there wasn't much there either. With that in mind, the same could be said for many WCW superstars from 1999 onwards, but every now and then you would get a gem like this Nitro main event. Take away the fact that this was the first of 2 world title matches on this evening, and just look at this match from start to end and you're going to see something special. It's confirmation that, under the right circumstances, WCW could still produce great matches even when the future looked bleaker and bleaker with each passing week. Sting won the World Heavyweight title from a heel DDP in this match, but Page won the belt back later that night by defeating Goldberg, Nash and Sting in a 4-way match. Ratings Machine said this was the best match of DDP's career, one that wouldn't have been out of place as the main event of a pay-per-view. In fact, it was better than any of WCW's pay-per-view main events that year. Fans who submitted match ratings on Cage Match felt that the King of Cable tournament final between Sting and Big Van Vader was better than their Super Brawl strap match. This features one of Sting's most heroic matches. Not only did he compete in a Battle Bowl qualifying match, he would have to wrestle Big Van Vader before competing in the big Battle Royal later in the night. During his match with Vader, the Stinger takes an absolute beating and he has to keep digging down deep to try over and over again to make successful comebacks. When you've got someone as imposing as Vader and someone as beloved as Sting, then it is gonna be extra special. Benny Fivebellies said, "This had fantastic crowd heat. This is exactly what it needed to be, with a big bully heel beating up a valiant white meat babyface who keeps coming back with power moves and signature spots." A very memorable bout that turns into a brutal fight. Flair vs Funk at the 1989 Great American Bash was one for the ages, and it's a match that still holds up very well today. One of the main criticisms of Ric Flair's work is that he has the same match over and over again. There is some validity in that statement, of course, but this is a match that proves Flair could change the psychology of his matches when necessary while still producing excellent results. Terry Funk, quite simply, was great in this match, and he comes across as relentless and dangerous as he tries to end the Nature Boy's career in the most violent way possible. Also, if you're going to check this one out, make sure you watch Flair's promo before the match and stick around for the post-match shenanigans too. I think this one would have made my top 10, to be honest. When you remember that this match happened in 1992, then it becomes easier to understand why this contest was so innovative. Flan Brand was an outstanding competitor in WCW, and I really enjoyed his work in the early 90s. His heel work in late 92 and his time in the Hollywood Blondes was great too, but I also really enjoyed Brand as a babyface. WCW already had high-flying matches with innovative offense before this one. The Great Muta can take a lot of credit for introducing fans to a new style of wrestling upon his arrival to the United States, but this Super Brawl match pits 2 of the very best high flyers against each other, and there wasn't another promotion in the United States who could produce such a match at the time. Pillman reclaims the Light Heavyweight Championship in this one after losing it to Liger a few months earlier. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it ASAP. And again, remember, this happened in 1992. Rebel River said it's one of WCW's greatest cruiserweight matches of all time, and certainly the match that put their company's cruiserweight division on the map. I mentioned this match earlier, and again, it's not as good as the original 1989 trilogy, but it is better than the 1994 Saturday Night match. Like the Saturday Night match, you get to see Flair and Steamboat go at it again with a little more experience under their belts, and while both men may have been ever so slightly past their prime, it's still a great match. There's a few callbacks to their previous encounters here. It starts off pretty slow, but the second half is highly enjoyable with loads of back and forth action between the two as fatigue kicks in. The finish, however, has people torn. This one ends in a draw, and while some people like this, others didn't. JanFan1980 said, "This was another fantastic main event between two of WCW's best, and it's kind of the bookend of WCW's run before Hogan and the rest of the WWF castaways came in and bumped nearly every entire WCW main event roster from the scene by the end of '95. Ending was a little cheap, but unique." Bobby Eaton and Stan Lane took on Steve Armstrong and Tracy Smothers at the 1990 Great American Bash, and they also put their NWA United States tag titles up for grabs. This one proves that even in 1990 and towards the end of their run, the Stan Lane and Bobby Eaton incarnation of the Midnight Express still had a lot to offer. Their wonderful heel work in this one gets the crowd completely losing their minds. The Confederate gear on the Southern Boys makes the team a bit difficult for fans to cheer for nowadays when watching the match back, but look at the crowd back then when Armstrong and Smothers start firing up. It's insane how over this team was in this match in particular. The Midnights end up successfully defending their tag team belts, but this is a great match for those who doubt these tag teams from what feels like a dated and bygone era. This tag team match is fantastic and it's way before its time. JVPW Media said, "I'm still trying to catch my breath after watching this one. It's a real shame that the Southern Boys or Young Pistols never became a true top team in WCW, but they had the unfortunate luck of coming along during the Steiners' dominance." Bret and Benoit had 4 singles matches on Monday Nitro, and 2 of them made the top 30 best WCW matches of all time. It goes to show that while most people think Bret had a terrible run in WCW, he was still putting on good matches if paired against the right opponent. This one here in 1999 had the potential to be great. It's a hard-hitting match that doesn't lean too much into the technical abilities of both men, which is a nice change. It's limited though by TV time and a typical WCW finish that involved interference from Kurt Hennig, Barry Windham and Dean Malenko. If this match was given more time and a clear winner, then it would have been way more memorable, but well, you kinda expect these finishes during this era of WCW. A superb sharpshooter crossface counter got the fans buzzing, and it's one of the many highlights in this contest. American Dragon 27 said, "Up until the ending, this was probably the best match Bret ever had in WCW. The technique and selling was tremendous." This one felt like a real do-or-die match for the babyface Ric Flair. Before the match, we saw Flair leave his family and leave his home to go to Starrcade and put his career on the line against the dominant Big Van Vader. WCW Starrcade 93 was held in Charlotte, North Carolina. The audience were fully behind the Nature Boy, and rather than booking a predictable match where the babyface comes out all guns blazing, Slick Rick was actually worried and concerned about what the future holds should he be unable to stop Vader and win the World Championship. The build-up for the match throughout the Starrcade broadcast was excellent. The match too was very good, with a crowd that absolutely adores Ric Flair. Rick takes a good old-fashioned beating from the champion, but in the end he overcomes the odds in what turns out to be one of Flair's most emotionally charged matches of his entire career. You can learn more about this one in a video I made a while back. Just search for Vader vs Flair on my channel. A match that ranks high for the emotion it brought out in the fans in the arena and across the world. On this night, Ron Simmons became the first black champion in history. You sense watching it that no one thought Simmons was going to win, and it was going to be another run-of-the-mill match for Big Van Vader. But when Simmons hits the power slam and he pins the world champion, the absolute joy in the arena creates a moment in wrestling history that will live on forever. Ron Simmons was legit. He was popular enough to be world champion, and it was great not only to see a man of colour rise to the very top, but it was also great that WCW gave someone fresh an opportunity to have a run with the world title. If you thought Flair vs Vader was driven by emotion, just wait until you see Ron Simmons win the world title in August of 1992. OWA Fan 29 said, "Very good match with a historic moment of Ron Simmons becoming the first black world champion in history. Match was 7 out of 10, but I gave it an extra point due to the significance of the finish." Yet another WCW Cruiserweight match that opened up a pay-per-view. This was only Rey Mysterio's second match in WCW, yet he reached the top 10 in this list of ranked matches, and that goes to show how revolutionary he really was for fans not already familiar with his work. Remember too, there was a big main event at this show that wasn't ranked at all, and as a matter of fact, the NWO guys are more or less absent in today's video unless you count Bret Hart. Breathtaking stuff as always from these two though. There are a few hiccups along the way, but it kinda adds to the risk factor of the match. If this was what WCW fans could expect from the Cruiserweight division going forward, then the future definitely looked very, very bright. A difficult match to watch nowadays for quite a few reasons, but in terms of bell-to-bell action, it's probably the greatest Nitro match in the company's history. This match was a tribute to Owen Hart. Owen passed away earlier in the year and Bret wanted to wrestle Benoit to honour his younger brother. While the previous Hart vs Benoit match we talked about was hard-hitting, this one was way more technical. It's a throwback match that's a lot more grounded, but this, I feel, works better for the two competitors. Bret said there was only one person in the audience that night as he defeated Chris Benoit with a sharpshooter. It's one for the ages for sure, yet one that doesn't get brought up for obvious reasons. Mizzle said, "It was fantastic as expected. WCW allowed these two to deviate from the usual crash-style fast-paced short-run match of the era and have a much more gritty and technical contest. Just seeing them go at it in pure grappling was great, and you can feel the emotion for Owen from both men." The Flair vs Funk rivalry would lead both men to Clash of the Champions in November 1989. An I Quit match would finally settle the score and put an end to this feud that Flair said was all about pride, integrity, and guts. This is a fight that was driven by the rivalry. Both guys already knew that wrestling wasn't going to win the match. You had to stand and fight your opponent until one man had no choice but to say, "I quit." If you're going to pull off wrestling moves, you're going to have to make them as brutal as possible. It's an all-out brawl through and through. There's a lot of heat, the crowd are very much into it. It looks like there's some criticism due to much of the match being punches, kicks and chops, but the match doesn't rank this high for no good reason. If you like brawls, you're gonna like Flair vs Funk at Clash of the Champions, though if I'm totally honest, I think I prefer the Great American Bash match a little more. Camus Pilot 21 wrote in his review, "This was a really fun brawl. Funk's at his best in hardcore and no DQ stipulations, and he was great here against Flair. Flair did his usual stuff of selling his ass off for his opponent and made Funk look like a madman, kicking the crap out of him around the ring." The highest ranking War Games match we have got, and one that many consider to be the best ever. This one is a great and fantastic fight filled with spots that fit well into the match type. Every single person in this War Games match is a star in their own right. There's no bad choices in this matchup. The heels come across as a real threat as they go up against 5 of WCW's most beloved babyfaces at the time. So WCW got this one right just with the guys they included in the bout. You've also got the Nikita Koloff, will he, won't he attack Sting dynamic going on that garnered even more fan engagement towards the end of the match. If you're going to show someone War Games for the very first time, or even show a classic War Games match to someone who's only watched the more recent WWE offerings, this is the one to choose. It's dramatic, it's filled with action, the crowd really get into it, and the finish sends the fans home happy. Unfortunately though, it did mark the beginning of the end for the Dangerous Alliance. Jobs wrote in his review, "Probably the best War Games match in history, and with good reason too. Such hatred and intensity was on display here, and everyone was on their A game as well. The crowd was hot for this one, and this is just an awesome match and borderline 5 stars too." There's not much I can say about this one that I haven't said already, but if you want my full thoughts, check out the video I made specifically for this match, or my Halloween Havoc 97 review. Many consider this the best WCW match of all time, and it's not hard to see why. This was a highly innovative match with both guys pulling off moves that had never been seen before. The breathtaking offense is mixed with the drama of Ray potentially losing his mask if he fails to beat Guerrero, and it all adds up to one of WCW's most captivating and fun matchups of all time. You'll notice something new every time you watch it. You'll wonder how these two came up with some of the high spots, and you'll wish they wrestled for another 15 minutes once the final bell rings, because absolutely nothing else on this card could compare to this instant classic. No exaggeration, I'd say this is probably the perfect cruiserweight match and the best cruiserweight match of all time in any promotion. Suzuki-gun wrote, "A phenomenal 14-minute match that even 23 years later still lives up to its timeless nature. Fantastic moves, great storytelling, and peak heel Guerrero versus face Mysterio." The top 4 matches in WCW history, as voted by the users of CageMatch.net, all feature Ric Flair versus Ricky Steamboat. At number 4 we have the WrestleWar 89 Music City Showdown encounter getting a 9.42 rating. At number 3 we have the Maryland House Show match that wasn't recorded for TV, though a fan cam is available. That got a 9.43 rating. At number 2, it's the best of 3 falls match at Clash of the Champions 6 with a 9.46 rating. And at number 1, the greatest WCW match of all time according to Cage Match with a score of 9.51, it's the Chi-Town Rumble encounter, the first match of the fabled trilogy. The only change I'd make here right at this moment would be switching the house show match to number 4, but do keep in mind that this top 30 we looked at certainly wouldn't be my top 30, but in terms of the fan vote for the final 4 matches, this is the only change I would make. Not to bang on too much about Flair vs Steamboat in '89 because, I might be covering each match individually very soon, but I think anyone who calls themselves a wrestling fan should at least make the effort to sit down and watch these matches. These aren't highly ranked matches for no reason, and you're going to be surprised by the work Flair puts in, the logical false finishes, and the sound storytelling in each match. Do I think the Chi-Town Rumble match is the greatest match in WCW history? I don't know. I'm honestly not sure right now what my favourite WCW match is, but I do know for a fact that the Chi-Town Rumble is in my top 5. Every match in the series is recommended though, and if you've got nothing else going on after watching this video, then go give them a watch. Let me know your thoughts on these rankings in the comment section and let me know what matches fit into your top 10. We can do this again in the future for other promotions and see what kind of scores we end up with, because honestly some of the matches included in this video surprised me. Still though, it was fun going back and watching the matches I'd forgotten about or matches I hadn't seen in a long time. Let me know your favourites. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and all that stuff because it helps me out a lot, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you very much for watching and take care.